Greeting of the day and heartiest welcome to each one of you present over here. My name is Ashish Anasayaduse from Jarur Singh Charitable Trust, Thakur Shyamnarayan Degree College. I am Assistant Professor of Food Production and Patisserie from Hotel Management Department. Thank you Mosina ma'am for hosting a technical round 2. It's privilege and honor to be here and conduct a technical round 3 for paper presentation. Now we have Mr. Rudra Cheulkar of first year BA in Culinary Art. He is going to present the research topic on a case studies on new normal style of dining. Over to you, Rudra.
Greetings of the day, one and all. My name is Rudra Cheulkar, and I'm a student from Thakur Institute of Hotel Management, and I'm pursuing my BA in Culinary Arts. I'm in my first year. Firstly, I'd like to thank Mr. Ashish Bivse for guiding me through this whole case study. The title of my case study is The New Normal Style of Dining, a case study on the revival of hospitality industry post COVID-19. Abstract. Dining in is an experience enjoyed by a customer relating to food and beverage service on a restaurant premise where he or she is in proper state to pay for the same. An experience which is being supplied by the numerous establishments for various years was significantly struck by the epidemic or pandemic which ravaged the whole world in the February of 2020. An issue which was initially recognized in China and then spread around the world had an unpleasant and devastating impact on the food and beverage business. A virus which individuals and the health institutions were unaware of caused several countries to shut down a number of food and beverage facilities as preventive measures outlined in their local regulations. Introduction. A restaurant is a public place where people can get drinks or meals. The public dining room that eventually became known as the restaurant was founded in France, and the French have continued to play an important role in its growth. The pandemic shook the restaurant business and demonstrated how inflexible it is. More than 70,000 restaurants in the United States have permanently closed due to COVID-19. Restaurants have to swiftly adapt their menus and workforce to accommodate curbside pickup and delivery in order to stay viable. So COVID-19 exposed the mundane things that many people took for granted until they are no longer an option, such as dining out. There was a huge setback to sector, leading a number of people to lose their employment and a number of enterprises to close their businesses. 2020 was a dreadful year for the industry, but the year 2021 was a bijou bonanza for the sector as there was a big development of vaccination, which was surely a fantastic achievement for the health institutions. So fine dining chains where operations revolve around providing a gourmet experience on the ground to patrons are now following their fast food peers to pivot to a delivery model. Concepts will reduce the dining room footprint as they continue to see a trend of more takeout and delivery. Restaurant concepts will invest into drive-through or pickup windows, options in construction designs. Restaurant sites will become available as landlords try to secure tenants in vacant locations. So, literature review. The hospitality industry in India employs about 43 million people, and job loss is about 25 to 30%. A lot of restaurants have been struggling or are still struggling to cope up with the new normal. There are numerous places that have already upped their game. For example, to avoid passing on the same menu to each table, QR codes have come in handy. Every restaurant after the pandemic has taken the temperature of their patients before they enter for the dining experience to prevent long lines. A lot of them stated pre-booking or online booking the tables. The next most popular change concerned the simplification of menus, which diners found to be less intimidating, easier to navigate. Diners hoped that the ability to order and pay remotely remained an option moving forward. So this is my case study on a restaurant called Game Palacio, Mumbai, which is owned by Prasuk Jain, and I reside in Mumbai. Game Palacio is an arcade or a gaming cafe where there are long courses for bowling and a different arcade section. So due to the COVID-19 pandemic, they had a difficulty to operate the whole system. So the deliveries skyrocketed as restaurants halted in-person eating. The business continued to suffer large losses due to revenue and profitability decreased. So 2 days before the grand launch, there was a landslide that forced the entire place to close for 2 days. We were unavailable. So this is a dialogue by Prasad Jain. We were unavailable to introduce the actual Anglo-Indian menu on schedule due to lack of readily available raw components. The restaurants had to hire its own delivery crew because it couldn't get drive through Zomato delivery through Zomato. Prasad Jain, co-owner of the game Palacio in Pink Wasabi, a pan-Asian diner and arcade, opened his doors in Mumbai earlier this year. The goal was to curate the full eating experience rather than just the food and drink. Menu features dishes such as Thai, sambal, Korean tofu, dim sum, black rice, edamame roll, saffron risotto, and smoky charcoal flan. People are extremely comfortable in a safe environment when the protocol is followed and hygiene is maintained at the arcade, says Jane. When asked how this restaurant Pink Wasabi has been harmed by people's growing preference for ordering versus dining in, Jane answered, this is more of a myth. People have had enough of staying at home and not traveling, prompting them to leave the moment the ban on the hotel industry was lifted. Every shop in the country has experienced difficulties such as rental issues, low footfalls, and other issues. Summary: focus on health and safety. So trends like single-use menu 10 cards, disposable silverware, hand sanitizing stations, and expecting the F&B staff to wear proper masks and face shields. Consumers or diners want restaurants to be more transparent about their cleanliness procedures. Increase digital offerings. Restaurants with a strong digital presence, such as easy online or mobile ordering or a solid digital reward program, saw increased consumer involvement during the pandemic. Customers are likely to remain digitally engaged after the epidemic based on all indications. Restaurants will continue to progress towards frictionless ordering and payment. Third, creative and changed menus. Restaurants are cutting down their menus to their best selling dishes as it is difficult to sell all the items on the menu. Smaller portions are also becoming more popular on menus which are less expensive for customers during these difficult economic times and take less time to eat. Fourth, push for takeout and delivery services. Third party applications like Swiggy, Zomato in India, Uber Eats or DoorDash in the USA, Just Eat or Deliveroo in the UK, etc., gained ground because of its efficient and contactless services. Dedicated drive-through lanes for picking up online and mobile orders also became prominent. Fifth, changed physical spaces. Restaurants are converting outside grassy areas and outside street spaces to dining pavilions. Many restaurants are adopting the ghost kitchen model, in which their kitchens are used to cook food for pickup and delivery. To ensure there is less of closed space for dining, restaurants are converting them into outdoor areas. Conclusion: in 2020, the chain restaurant business in the United States was valued at roughly $128.99 billion, down from $158.86 billion. Restaurants must be flexible in all parts of their operations, from staffing to supply chain management. Customers will return long after the pandemic is over if you focus on hygiene and deliver a solid, trustworthy experience. Restaurants must stay in touch with their customers' needs and adjust their experience accordingly, such as lowering menu pricing, offering incentives, or allowing customers to pay online. So 2020 was a dreadful year for the industry, but the year 2021 was a bijou bonanza, as I said earlier. We have been 2 years in the virus, but we are still uninformed about the source and the effect it can have on a longer run and how efficient the vaccines are with the new variants developing every day. But leaving aside the issue, the food and beverage business is clearly on a comeback, and we can conclude that little by little the industry is taking baby moves to stand back on its feet. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Rudra, for your presentation, as we got the good information regarding the same. Now we have Yash Khochare, student of first year BA in Culinary Art. He is going to present his topic on fast food industry in post-pandemic era. Over to you, Yash.
Greetings of the day. I am Yash Khochare from Thakur Institute of Hotel Management, pursuing BA in Culinary Arts. Today I will be presenting you a case study of quick service restaurant post COVID-19 pandemic. Before starting, I would like to thank Professor Ashish Pivase sir for guiding me through this case study. The global spread of COVID-19 pandemic has affected global economies. Among the affected sector, the service industry is suffering great losses. Before the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic, the fast food restaurants or quick service restaurants were benefited a lot from globalization, while they lost the benefit when the pandemic causes a lot of limitation on the cross-border flow of commodities and people. Since the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic occurred in Wuhan, China in early 2020, more than 600 million people have been infected with the disease, and so far the death total of world has exceeded 7 lakh and increasing gradually. In addition to great threats to people's life, the pandemic has huge impact on the global economy. As a matter of fact, the impact on the economy mostly comes from the loss of customer in the service industry and the reduced income expectations of consumers. In order to resume production as soon as possible and increase consumers' confidence in the economy, a number of governments have actively taken strict control measures such as issuing decrease order, all the people stay at home and maintaining appropriate social distancing. The Indian restaurant industry or quick service restaurant industry is among the top 3 service sector after retail and insurance. This sector is 20 times larger than the film industry, 4.7 times of hotels and 1.5 times of pharmaceutical industry in India. The Indian restaurant offered jobs to 7.3 million people in 2018 and 19. India's food service industry is innovative and provides an exciting opportunity to expand due to an average of 6.6 eating out frequencies per month in the country. Indian restaurants had a market value of about $152 billion in 2014. The food service market in India is divided into 2 segments, the organized and unorganized segment. The significant chunk of business, 86%, is unorganized, and in comparison, the organized restaurant business contribute to 14% only. Impact on fast food restaurants post COVID-19. The restaurant industry is among those worst hit due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. While the lockdown ordered restaurant to shut up, it had a severe impact on online food deliveries too. Quick service restaurants, QSRs, such as McDonald's, Burger King, KFC have found few takers as consumers are wary of eating outside food. Experts say QSR need to rely their strategies towards online deliveries and takeaways. In the pre-COVID times, most QSR used to get 20-30 of the revenue from deliveries. They need to take this to 50-70% now, as restaurants will continue to see low footfalls, says Pinakiranjan Mishra. Social distancing on the menu. Most QSRs are gearing up for this change. Burger King, for instance, besides delivery through food aggregators such as Zomato and Swiggy, plans to introduce its own app soon. Meanwhile, KFC India, which had stopped taking deliveries orders through its app and websites, plan to restart them soon. Currently, it is servicing customers through Swiggy and Zomato. Tata Starbucks started operation in 8 cities recently, where it is offering contactless deliveries and takeaways. COVID-19 lifestyle. Pandemic builds a strong case for fast food. There is no doubt that digital ordering and other innovation will continue to rattle the restaurant industry and play a role in determining its winner and losers. Technology has loomed large as transformative force in the restaurant industry, with the rise of digital ordering and delivering promising to upend the economy of running a major chain restaurant. The situation in the quarter was much different at Chipotle, where digital pickup and deliveries ordered accounted for 61% of its sales. The pandemic has served something of a fast forward button to this future, as customers steered clear of restoring dining rooms because of safety concerns, local regulations, or both. Conclusion: it is quite apparent that the pandemic is causing great impact on the real economies, and among them, due to the special vulnerability of fast food restaurant, great economic losses are occurred, which is quite inevitable. The reason behind such vulnerabilities, including slowing down of globalization, lockdowns, reduced consumers' confidence in the economic prospect, and negative emotion among them, etc. Based on the analysis, several possible solutions are proposed, including providing online meal ordering, implementation of sanitation management measures, and reduction of operating cost of restaurants. Thank you.
Thank you, Yash Khochare, for your wonderful presentation. Now we have Vratik Kini, a student of first year BA in Culinary Art. He is going to present a case study on promotion and redevelopment of tourism industry. Over to you, Vratik.
Hello everyone, myself Vratik Kini from Thakur Institute of Hotel Management. I am from FIBA in Culinary Arts. Today I would like to present a case study on promotion and redevelopment of tourism industry. Firstly, I would like to thank Professor Ashish Bhivse for helping me out throughout the case study. So basically, what is tourism? Tourism is basically a movement of people from the normal place of residence to another place. It's that definition. Uh, the tourism industry and the travel industry is closely interrelated. For one to tour, he has to travel, of course. So the main base of tourism is travel. People usually travel or tour for many reasons, like pleasure. People usually require a break from the normal schedule, so they travel and tour. Medical purpose, people travel for getting medical attentions. Educations, students usually travel from place to place for getting uh, education, different types of course, etc. For business meetings, for work purpose, etc. To meet and greet the dear ones, people, family, and friends who stay far away from each other. So people usually travel to meet them, to have some fun. Pilgrimage. People travel to visit their holy shrines, temples, church, mosques, etc. So that's called pilgrimage. People usually travel through railways, airways, and waterways. Roadways is another one. As we all know, due to the outbreak of novel coronavirus, many nations, almost all the nations in the world, imposed lockdowns and curfews. So the people were not allowed to travel and tour. So this completely tempered this industry. So we'll see how this affected different modes of transport and travel. The roadways actually did not suffer much because some eases were given to them. Yet the bus services and the taxi services were somewhat affected. So let's see. Travel and tourism are extremely important for developing nations because they generate capital and they generate employment as well. So it is very important for developing nations, for a nation to develop, etc. It generates employment. It is a major source of foreign exchange, of course. It is a backbone of hotel industry. When a person tours or travels, he carries his clothing, some essentials, etc. But he cannot carry his food or the shelter, which is one of two of the basic needs of a man. So this is where the hotel industry comes to the picture. The hotel industry provides food and shelter to the guest or to anyone. So that's what. So the backbone of hotel industry is travel and tourism. So let's read this out. Due to the outbreak of novel coronavirus and the imposition of curfews and lockdowns, the tourism industry came to a halt. The industry gradually started to decline. Various modes of travel and transport were badly affected. As the tourism industry declined, it also affected the industries related to them, like hotels, travel agencies, transportation, etc. So let's see how the railways were affected and recovered. Railways are very useful for domestic travel, especially local trains. Of course, most of us travel by local trains. It's very important for us. During the COVID pandemic, the rail service was completely shut down for civils to curb the spread of coronavirus. This affected the rail service very badly. However, as the restrictions were lifted, the conditions of the railway industry very much improved. However, the rail industry recovered over the time. So, as we read, the railway industry was actually one of the most affected ones. But when the restrictions were imposed, like when the lockdown was lifted up, the railway industry kind of started to recover and started to get back on the tracks again. So, like of course, some rules and regulations were made to be followed. Uh, so let's see what they were. The modest recovery was made by the supply of PPE kits, medicines, medical equipments, food grains, milk, etc. through transport. So this was even continued during the lockdown. So it was one of the main source of recovery. Using railways was permitted to healthcare workers, frontline workers, and people in municipality services. The people working in healthcare and frontline were given a kind of particular, a pass or an identity card. So only after showing that identity card, they were allowed to travel. They were issued tickets and then only allowed to travel. Uh, People having an appointment letter issued from a hospital or a doctor were allowed to board the trains. Of course, when if we go to the ticket counter and show an appointment letter or any doctor's letter that you have a so-called appointment, so you have to travel by trains, then you were given tickets and then they were allowed to travel. When the restrictions were lifted and lockdown was eased up, then and when the vaccines were made available for all the people, the double vaccinated people were allowed to travel, but they were only allowed to issue monthly passes at earlier times. So the people with double vaccine certificates were allowed to issue monthly passes and later were also allowed to issue daily tickets. uh, People traveling interstate compulsorily had to carry a negative RT-PCR test certificate. People traveling from one state to another had to undergo a RT-PCR test, and if they found it was negative, then they made it as they gave them a certificate, and only after showing that certificate they were allowed to issue a ticket. Use of mask in railway premises was made compulsory. Spitting in public was prohibited. People found spitting in public without mask were fined. Legal action was taken against the citizens traveling without a proper railway ticket or pass. So, of course, public spitting was completely prohibited. Use of mask actually everywhere, but especially in railway premises was uh, was completely compulsory. And if you were fined without a proper mask, which you should cover nose and face, entire face actually. If you are found without a mask, they will fine you. If you are found spitting over anywhere, they would fine you. Then Indian Railways started strumming special trains to send back millions of migrants to their hometowns. People travel for business purpose and work purpose as well. So when during the lockdown period, people were asked to stay at the in their home itself. So the migrants had no other options. So they usually traveled like roadways. They took the road. So to send back them to their home, Indian Railway started some special trains and uh, and help the migrants. So that also contributed to the recovery of railway industry. So overall, railway industry as of now has almost completely recovered and is recovering its losses as well. So let's see the effects on recovery of waterways. Waterways is one of the most ancient modes of travel and tourism in the world. Of course, The people used to travel by waterways if they had to travel from one nation to another in the ancient times, usually. Many tourists prefer ships, boats, cruises, etc. for traveling long distances. Cruise industry is one of the major affected waterway service. As discussed earlier, the travel and tourism industry was completely at a halt due to the outbreak of novel coronavirus, and hence the cruise industry declined too. However, the cruise companies are still in starting blocks but are more optimistic that they can hoist the anchor again. The cruise industry and the other waterway services were resumed with strict regulations. So let's see how it recovered its losses and what are the rules and regulations for. Everyone who wishes to board the ship is supposed to carry a COVID negative certificate. Of course, they had to undergo the RT-PCR test and had to be COVID negative. Use of face masks was compulsory for both passengers and staff. Trips took place with 60% of capacity with maximum possible of social distancing. The passengers on board were not allowed to deboard without permission and were not allowed to get back on the ship without permission. So basically, the passengers which boarded the ship were not actually allowed to deboard at any stops or any halt of the ship. And if they deboarded the ship, they were not actually allowed to get back on the ship. To reduce the pandemic concerns, Regent 7 Seas, the world's most luxurious cruise, established the Sail Safe Health and Safety Program. So they followed each and every COVID norm, took every small step to be safe, COVID negative. Many ships improved their ventilation system as it was recommended that air in the cabins must be completely changed after every 5 minutes and in large public spaces every 4 minutes. It was suggested that ventilation helped to retain or to curb the COVID-19 pandemic. So in closed areas, they were suggested to change the air or the ventilation must be done every 5 minutes, and in large spaces like open spaces, the ventilation must happen or the change of air must happen every 4 minutes. Boutique, a small ship cruise line of Windsor Cruises, has invested millions in equipping its 6 ships to curb the spread of pandemic while in the cruise. So overall, all these points help to recover the water industry or the cruise industry. Let's see the effects and recovery of airlines post COVID-19. Traveling through airlines is one of the most convenient. Of course, airlines is one of the best, one of the quick services. It provides the best, I guess, and one of the quickest service for traveling from place to place. Usually, international travels are made using airlines. Okay. Traveling through airlines is one of the most convenient, and as the airline industry provides a quick service as compared to other modes of travel when considering distance. Traveling from airlines can be domestic, that is national or international. The most common modes of transport from airlines is airplanes and helicopters. The first aircraft was invented by Wright brothers on 17 December 1903. Although there was some debate that the first aircraft was invented and flown by Shivkar Bapuji Talpade in 1895. Just like railways, waterways, even the airways were affected due to the pandemic. However, as the virus was curbed, the industry got a boost again. Airways was one of the most hampered industry amongst the other two industries, because usually now the flights flew empty from airports to airports. People usually, were actually afraid of traveling as well. So the tourism industry was different, and so was the airline industry. The airline industry's modest recovery was from the transport of goods. These goods mostly included vaccines, PPE kits, medical equipments. That's it. Most of the medical equipment as well. PPE kits, medicines, medical equipments, vaccines, etc. were transported from pillar to poles, and hence the industry was never completely shut. As the situation came under control, some domestic flights were initiated. There came a time when most of the nations lifted up the restrictions and hence allowed international flights as well. The nations usually sealed their borders. They didn't allow international flights to enter their nations or to enter their borders because they want, of course, everyone was afraid at the time. To curb the pandemic, everyone had to do that. So after the vaccines were made available to people, when the pandemic was under control, there came a time that nations started to lift up their restrictions. So at that time, people started to travel again. Of course, traveling and tourism is the basic need, one of the basic need of man. Like it's a natural urge to travel. So people again started to travel. They got the kind of confidence. The airline industry was once again started. So let's just read out the summary. The spread out of novel coronavirus took the entire world to a standstill. Almost all the industries were at a halt, and so was travel and tourism industry. Though roadways is yet another mode of transport, it was not much affected as compared to the other three. The railway industry was adversely affected due to the restriction imposed during the pandemic. Mostly, healthcare workers and people in municipal services was allowed to use the service. However, as the restrictions was eased, the rail industry was back on tracks once again. People with double vaccines were allowed to travel after the restrictions were lifted. Just like rail, waterway and cruise industries were also at a halt. Travel by cruise and ships were almost completely prohibited. However, some losses were recovered by the transport of goods through waterways. After the lockdowns and curfews were lifted, civils were allowed to travel through waterways, which gave them a great boost to the industry. Airways, that is, airline industry, was one of the most affected ones. Countries sealed their borders, rejecting any international flights. Many flights flew empty between the airports. Anyway, the industry somewhat covered its losses through the transport of goods. Later, when the pandemic was curbed, people started to travel by airlines at instant. The conclusion. Most of these industries related to travel and tourism are back on tracks again because the lockdown was lifted. People started to travel and tour again. So most of the industries are recovering, and some of them are already recovered. So let's read out. Imposition of lockdown completely tempered the travel and tourism industry. The basic modes of travel were completely shut. Meanwhile, the traveling and tourism was not allowed. Transportation of goods helped to keep the industry alive. However, as the conditions improved, the tourism industry gained a boost. Sorry. People eager to travel started traveling and tourism once again. Use of railways, waterways, and airways was once again made available to public. Overall, all these aspects helped to boost the industry and hence the tourism industry redeveloped and once again promoted. Thank you.
Thank you, Vratik, for tremendous presentation. Now we have Tanmay Satam, a student of first year BA in Culinary Art. He is going to present a case study on transformation like restarting, reorganizing, and assimilating the tourism industry. Over to you, Tanmay.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tanmay Satam. I am from Thakur Institute of Hotel Management, first year of BA Culinary Arts. I want to thank Ashish Bivase sir for being my guide. My case study is on transformation like restarting, reorganizing, and assimilating the tourist industry. The case study on revival of hospitality industry post COVID-19. Abstract. COVID-19 was declared as a pandemic by the World Health Organization in January 2020. And due to that, it affected every country in the world. This pandemic spread over the country in high rate. So because of that, the travel restriction was imposed. And due to that, the travel industry has seen in large decline for the demands of all form of travels, which led to revenue impact. The Organization for Economic Development stated that there could be a significant drop in overall international tourism in the economy to about 80% if the world does not recover. In addition to the drop in international and domestic tourism, this pandemic is expected to have a negative impact on revenue, both in domestic and foreign exchange earning. The result indicate that COVID-19 has infected travel pattern and habits as psychological fear, economic factors, and fear of contamination. Hygiene and health condition in the host destination can represent essential factor in travel decision making. Introduction. The outbreak of COVID-19 has passed critical health challenge worldwide. The pandemic is one of the most highly contagious outbreaks in recent human history with more than 46 million cases. The virus has spread. Has severe threatened lives, and measures such as lockdown has been imposed. Few industries have encountered failure due to travel restriction. Before the pandemic, at the global level, the industry accounted for 10.6% of GDP. Summary. Many governments are looking for way to stimulate domestic tourists as a way to support the baffling tourist industry. Policy recommendation and conclusion domestic tourism. Many countries are looking to domestic tourists to help simulate economic recovery. In this analysis, we also saw redirecting tourists from foreign destination to domestic one, helping to fill the gap in about half of the economy. This, however, for economics, highly dependence on tourism, including small island developing states such as Fiji, the Cook Island, Palau, and Maldives, domestic tourism is not a viable option for filling the gap. When it comes to tactical precaution, paying extra attention to safety of restaurant, accommodation unit, or airport leverage people interested in local and national, and also build a cheaper product for low income or even average income consumer are some of the path towards recovery. In many cases, there are also clear differences in spending between domestic and foreign tourists. First, promoting domestic tourism. It provides a better chance for rebound in the earlier phase of recovery. Many governments are looking for a way to stimulate domestic tourism as a way to support the battle. The tourism industry Philippines invested $8.5 million in the domestic tourism campaign in early 2020. In Vietnam, the domestic tourism has shown a dear upward trend since the lockdown was eased on 11th May 2020. Travel bans and fear of infection could be also induce tourism who have originally traveled abroad to look for domestic destination, making this as a viable strategy. Negotiating travel bubbles with preferred partner. The growing number of travel agreements is a testament to this. Economies that are highly dependent on tourism from one source country would particularly benefit from bilateral travel bubble. Another option for countries to recover tourism is to establish travel bubbles or green corridor. Travel bubbles are agreement by signatories to open their border to visitors from partners. Economic travel bubbles could be business travel only or also include leisure travel. Conclusion. All stakeholders in the industry must work together to make the industry sufficiently reliant to deal with the crisis. Confronted with caution tourism, businesses such as transport, accommodation, and catering should further enhance their hygiene conditions to restore confidence. And more importantly, communication is essential in this challenging time to feel tackle traveler concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanmay, for fabulous presentation. I would like to thank and congratulate each and every student of first year BA in Culinary Art for giving such a tremendous presentation with the skill and efficiency, as it is a turning point of your career when you are undergraduate student. Now we end up the technical round 3 and soon we'll begin with the technical round 4 for the prepper presentation. We'll get back to you. I would like to hand over the technical round 4 to Gaurav sir. Thank you.